grading?
For what?
Class.
Oh,
The reason we're all here.
You have to put yourself here, and that's it.
All right, guys. Thanks for those who are here who came on time. Quick announcements before we get started. As you probably saw my announcement about the midterm grade. It's kind of a weird how it worked out, but we only have 7.5% of the grade available for that midterm grade that you saw on your student account. I didn't get the grades from Lee yet or from Chet. So I couldn't incorporate that into the midterm grades. Whatever grade you saw, if it was like 100% or if it was 0, don't panic or don't celebrate that grade just yet because a lot still has to get incorporated into it. Does anyone have any questions though about anything related to grades at all? Just do one of these, man. It's not that late. 8:30. We started a little bit late. It's all right. It's gonna be okay. So we have a very special guest speaker today. I'm sure it's not a surprise that the fitness industry, like most industries, is, for whatever reason, unfortunately, dominated by men. But our guest speaker today is one of the few females who have kind of broken through this male-dominated industry and making a name for herself. Hopefully I get all the stuff right in the list. She is the managing director for Muscle Insider. So if any of you guys follow that magazine, the print and the online content, she's the managing director of that content. She's also a writer for those publications as well as some others. She does personal training privately, and I guess when she has some spare time, some fitness modeling as well. But she's doing a whole bunch of stuff, definitely shaking up the industry. We're lucky to have her. One of my old friends from New York, Jamie Filer.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I think one of the reasons that AJ likes having me is because my route isn't conventional. Like how I got to where I am is not at all the way you'd expect. It wasn't typical, like high school, university. I did kin with AJ at York, and then from personal training into, you wonder how you go from personal training to managing editor, and that's kind of what my slideshow is about, to show that A, my route is unconventional, B, there are so many different ways and paths and roads to get to wherever it is you guys want to go. But the point is you do have to have an end goal. So I'm going to be talking a lot about that too. I'd like to start my talk with a bunch of disclaimers. I don't have a pointer, I'm sorry. There will be graphic images and partial nudity. If and when you guys get into the fitness industry, this will just be standard. There will always be graphic images and partial nudity in the fitness industry. Second one, I curse sometimes a lot. I'm sorry. It's because I get really passionate about what I do and I forget who I'm talking to, and I just want to apologize in advance if that offends anybody. I also haven't made a PowerPoint presentation since I was in university 100 years ago, so the quality is crap. AJ's like, do you have any videos in a PowerPoint? You can do that? This stuff doesn't occur to me. So if it's very elementary, I just need the pictures, and then you guys just have to listen to the words, and everything else will take care of itself. Next one, I talk quickly in case you haven't noticed yet, and often with no regard for stream of consciousness, my mind moves faster, it says master, perfect example, than my mouth. So I will throw in a lot of anecdotes, especially because my life in general is all over the place. So please try and follow along, but if you have any questions, either throw them out as I'm going or at the end. All right, on to business. I want to present this slideshow, which is my life, in terms of lessons I've learned. Oh, it's over there too. Okay, lessons I've learned along the way. The first one, the most important one, is your struggles develop your strengths, aka I started from the bottom, now I'm here. Now, if you look at these pictures, it's not, I'm smiling, but it's not funny. This is how I started my life. This was my life from 11 to 21. I'm 5'8", and my rock bottom was 95 pounds. How did this happen? I started my first diet when I was 11 for no particular reason. No particular reason. I got to a new school, maybe I was intimidated by the girls, maybe I wanted a boyfriend, maybe everyone else was a size 0, I don't even remember, it was 17 years ago, but I hit my rock bottom. I was hospitalized 3 times with anorexia. The first time I was an inpatient at Sick Kids for 40 days. The second time I was an outpatient for 2 months, straight through the summer right before grade 11. And then in grade 11 I was hospitalized for 48 hours with kidney dialysis because I was eating too much protein relative to the amount of calories I was taking in, and I'd shut my kidneys down. So, why am I in this pose? in the upper left-hand corner because I also decided that would be a good time to start bodybuilding. Because when you're 4% body fat, really the only sport that makes sense is bodybuilding. So between 2004 and 2008, I did 9 shows.
Wow.
And yeah, probably not a good idea. All between 95 and 104 pounds at between 5'6" and 5'8", all at 4% body fat. For those of you in Hollywood, you guys probably know a lot of bad stuff happens to you when you keep your body fat that low for that long. Osteoporosis, osteopenia, fertility issues. Let's not even go to what my mood was like because I was in a constant state of hangry 24/7, 365. But as the bottom says, your struggles develop your strength. So I once heard this kind of cheesy parable about a caterpillar, and he decides to become a butterfly, so he goes into a tree, makes himself a little cocoon, but then he's outside this little boy's house, and the little boy sees this caterpillar struggling to become a butterfly, so what does he do? He opens up the cocoon prematurely. Now the thing about butterflies, I guess, gestational period, is that while they're in that cocoon struggling to get out, that's when they develop their full wings. That's when they develop, blood flow to all of the muscles that are going to get the wings flapping. So when the little boy cut the cocoon prematurely, the butterfly had a malformed wing, and he was too small, and he could barely get up off the ground. It is the struggle within the cocoon that makes you what you're going to become. So if it wasn't for this 10-year period, I would definitely not have even started in the fitness industry. What got me out was a number of different factors. First of all, I don't know what any of your relationships with your parents are like, but mine, obviously, as a teenager, was pretty volatile. It had its ups and downs. But I still had a heart. So when I would see my mom at the corner of my door watching me sleep just to make sure the covers were still going up and down because she was concerned that her baby girl was going to die in her sleep, that is a huge moment. That has a huge effect on an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid. The other thing was that my father had Lou Gehrig's disease. From the time I'd known him, he could not breathe on his own, speak on his own, or walk on his own. So it was always hard to get his attention. He was terminally ill from 8 months before I was born. He was diagnosed a month after my parents got married. The last thing I wanted to do was be another burden on my family by having this illness that could also rip someone from my mom, because I knew it was inevitable with my dad. So my parents influenced me to get better because I knew that I had a limited amount of time with my dad, and I was not going to do that to my mom anymore. I also decided, because I'd already had anorexia for 10 years at this point, from 11 to 21, that if I didn't get better by my 21st birthday, I would have lived with an eating disorder longer than I would have lived without one. And that is not a good ratio at all for anybody. So I enlisted the help of a bunch of professionals. I talked to people, literally anybody I could get my hands on that had any sort of expertise in this field. And it took me 4 years, but I recovered. I also did a show in 2012 in the middle of my recovery, which set me back a little bit. But that is also when I decided that I was going to retire, because I know my limits, which is super important. Pivotal moments and self-discovery. So the gentleman on the left is my dad. As you can see, he's hooked up to a ventilator. He's also hooked up to a myoelectric switch. That's how we communicated. He would move. He would have a computer in front of him, and every time he would blink, it would move letters across the screen, and then he would stop on a letter. That is how we communicated. That is the only way I knew my dad, but he was my entire life. Like, this guy was as much as I loved my mom, I was in love with my dad. He was my everything. He was my best friend. And when I was 19, something happened in our basement. They're still not quite sure, but it started an electrical fire, which eventually worked its way up, and unfortunately my dad was 180 pounds of dead weight. The firefighters couldn't get him out in time, and even when they did, they didn't take his ventilator with him, so he ended up suffocating on his way down. It was devastating. It practically ruined me, but I also figured that if I couldn't have my superhero by my side anymore, I had to become one. I had to be everything to my mom at 19 years old. I am her only child. He was her only marriage. My dad had an ex-wife and 3 kids by another woman, so I have 3 step-siblings, but we became each other's everythings. If it wasn't for losing my dad, my mom wouldn't be everything to me. She is my why. She is my best friend. She's my mom. She's my entire life. But that was a pivotal moment, because if I had gone living with my parents the entire time, I wouldn't have discovered just how strong I could be. It's only when something like that happens, it's only when you go through a trial, a tribulation, pain, suffering, that a great moment is going to come out of it. And if you don't use that pain and suffering and trial and tribulation in order to get better, then it will have all been for nothing. My dad would have passed away in vain if I didn't become the person that I am now. Also, as a result of his passing, I have my never-ending quest to impress him. Literally, everything I do, every promotion I get, every step forward I take is to try and make him proud of me. And the reason that this is haunting and amazing at the same time is because I will never know. I will never know whether he's proud of me or not, which is why I will never stop trying. The gentleman on the right that I am embracing, with a girl playing the ukulele in the background, is my ex-fiance. Anyway, he is another moment of self-discovery. This guy was everything you could ever hope for on paper. He was like the laundry list checklist of the person your parents want you to bring home. This guy was perfect. We dated on and off, mostly on, for 5 years. And then, I went through therapy for this guy. I put myself through everything just to be with him. He proposed. This was the day that he proposed. In July of 2013, and by January 2014, I called it off. I realized that I wasn't ready to settle down yet. I realized we had fought so many times. You will notice it in the future slides. I am super career driven. I am super ambitious. And he saw my surplus of ambition as a lack of interest on his part. When I would bring my phone into bed to answer work emails, he figured it was because I wasn't interested in sex. I'm very interested in sex. But I'm so interested in work, so interested in work. Takes precedence sometimes. If I get a fun work email from my boss or from an IFBB pro who wants an interview, I am answering tweets instead of being with my fiance. And when I explained it that way to him and he realized that it wasn't him, it was me, we broke up amicably. It wasn't some sort of he lit a fire in my house and called all my friends to tell them how awful I was. He's like, I get it, and I've seen it all along. I just thought that maybe we could find a way to mesh. But yet another huge, pivotal moment for me was that I realized I wasn't ready to settle down, and I didn't want to bring someone into my life when it wasn't complete yet. I was still on a search for who I was and what I wanted to do with my life. I was not ready. Discovery moments, I'm stealing this quote from Tony Robbins, is a moment where you discover not how tough life is, but how strong you've been created. So it's not necessarily just an epiphany that you have and you're like, oh, I discovered. No. Life is rough and it will always be rough, but the discovery part comes when you overcome it. So I overcome my dad's passing, became a stronger person. I overcame this broken engagement and learned so many valuable lessons about myself and what I want in a significant other as a result of that. Next one. Okay, now we're moving on to career, because obviously my relationship ended as a result of it, so it must be pretty important to me, correct? Yes. How many of you are familiar with the Arnold Classic, and I guess the IFBB in general? Okay, cool. So the IFBB is the International Federation of Bodybuilding. It is the governing body of all professional bodybuilders. There are a bunch of amateur competitions and organizations, but the IFBB is like the huge umbrella. And the Arnold Classic is the second most prestigious, important event of the IFBB pro season, second only to the Olympia. 2008, I was 20 years old, and I was sent to the Arnold by bodybuilding.com. How did this happen? This goes back to what AJ said in terms of, I hate to use this term in 2016, but breaking the glass ceiling. Even in 2008, I still had to break a glass ceiling. Does anyone know Lane Norton? You guys familiar with Lane? If it's your macro stat, okay, cool. So I used to watch Lane Norton. This was back, I'm going to date myself. We didn't have live streaming in 2008. You could not just watch a bodybuilding show on bodybuilding competition on bodybuilding.com or digital media or wherever. You had to go into a forum, log in, and then read somebody who was watching it tell you what the competitors looked like. right? Yeah, like what? But we did it. But we did. This also predated Twitter, so there wasn't even like super quick characters updating. Like if you had a I don't even know who had a smartphone in 2008. Anyway, not the point. I used to watch Lane Norton write about boys all the time, men's bodybuilding, nonstop. Men's bodybuilding got all of the fame, all of the time, and the second the men got off the stage and the women got on, he'd shut down his computer, and then he'd write up his kind of post-show review. And I didn't understand, because we still had women's bodybuilding, we still had fitness, we still had figure. That's 3 out of 4 categories that were dominated by women, but nobody gave a shit. But I did. Because I was at the shows anyway. I went up to the editor-in-chief and I said, listen, it's not that I don't respect what Lane Norton's doing, but you either need to give him more or give somebody else the women. Because you are missing 75% of the competition. Now, I know that it's not necessarily as popular as men's bodybuilding, but it's still there. There are still women who want to see, there are still men and women who want to see the women on stage. They're just as much athletes as the men's bodybuilders. So the editor-in-chief of bodybuilding.com says, well, what do you propose? And I said, let me take Lane's laptop after he uses it, and I will do the women. I will be like the female Lane Norton. I will just write down what I see. Again, I competed 8 or 9 times at this point, so it's not like I was a total noob. I knew what I was doing. I knew what the judges were looking for. And he's like, done. You've got your first gig. It's the Arnold Classic in 2008. He didn't even give me an amateur level show. My first time ever working for bodybuilding.com as the female Lane Norton was at the Arnold Classic. So it was incredible, and I ended up working for bodybuilding.com for about 5 more years, every year covering the Arnold, the Olympia. So they sent me, paid for everything. I was like an actual employee of bodybuilding.com until they decided to host their first live streaming, and then they realized the forums weren't going to be as important anymore. My next gig, not the most flattering photo, but are any of you familiar with the Scivation brand of supplements? Someone? Okay, cool. So, once upon a time, you can see Lane Norton's in this photo too. Scivation used to be huge. They've got a product called Extend. It's a branched-chain amino acid product. It is unbelievable still to this day. They haven't changed the formula. It's still amazing. On the forums, there were 3 men who pretty much took over the entire Scivation section of bodybuilding.com. There was Mark Lobliner, Derek Charbois, and Lane Norton. And I used to love Scivation products, but I was the only female presence on these forums. And I'm like, guys, I know that I'm not the only woman using your BCAAs. I know that I'm not the only woman using your protein. And I know that I'm not the only woman being coached by Derek. Like, why don't you have any girls? And they're scratching their heads being like, well, what do you propose? I said, let me be your girl. Let me be your token girl. The only other women in these photos are the girlfriends of the boys. Like, Lane Norton's wife is there, Mark's girlfriend is there, Derek's, they've all gotten married, but like, everyone's girlfriend, and then the only Scivation-sponsored athlete who was female. Because I believed in myself. I believed that I had something to offer them that they didn't already have. And one of my lessons to you guys is, especially in this industry, don't try and be somebody else. I know you're going to hear it 110 times, but I didn't get my job with bodybuilding.com and with Scivation because I was willing to sit back like all of the other females. You can see we're all covered up. We were not booth babes at the Arnold Classic. We weren't walking around in tight pants and sports bras. None of us dieted for the show or did our hair. We just came as we were. And that worked for us, and it worked for Scivation. I was with them for 4 years. So if I have any advice to you, especially regarding work, is stay true to you and you will get the job you want. Because you can only fake it for so long. If you're somebody else, eventually you're going to be found out. But to this day, I still haven't been found out, so we're good. This is me now. I currently have 4 sponsors. Genovo Nutrition, Ryan Doris and Ben Escrow. 6-pack bags. I don't know if you guys are familiar. They're like the ones that come with the Tupperware in them. They sell them at Popeyes. They're pretty big. So I'm not an ambassador. I'm an actual sponsored athlete with them. Perfect Shaker. They make this series of superhero shaker cups. Maybe you've seen them on Instagram or something. And then Freak Fitness is my coach. Darren Mailing is out of Winnipeg. So he sponsors me. And I don't even compete anymore. Like, I have a sponsored coach. I have 4 sponsors right now, and I don't get on stage. It is just because of who I am and what I believe I can do for this industry and these brands that has gotten me this far. This photo shoot, also, because I don't just do that in the gym, was free. Because the photographer is like, you're just so genuine when you lift, you're so easy to work with, that I was telling AJ that I've the fitness model thing is here and there because the work is sparse. But like, I've gotten gigs with Trek, I've gotten gigs with Sport Check, I've gotten gigs with Reebok, and it's not because, look at me, it's not because I do my hair and I wear a lot of makeup and I'm like super cute all the time. It's because I'm just me all the time, and the right brands will gravitate towards you. Next. Oh yeah. Okay, so this is fun. As managing editor and online editor-in-chief of Muscle Insider, I have, I guess you could call it a right or a privilege to put up anything I want on the website. Obviously, it can't be offensive, it can't be discriminatory, it can't be mean, but I pretty much have free reign. So I decided to do a piece about homosexuality in the fitness industry and why it's so taboo. And nobody said anything, and it was the first time, other than in 1989 when Iron Man magazine did like the first coming out story of the first bodybuilder who ever came out. There have been no pieces in the fitness industry about, you know, love is love, or same-sex marriage, or same-sex couples in the context of the fitness industry. But it's something that I was passionate about. It was something that I wanted to write about, so I put it online. And I checked yesterday, and it's got 4,000 views. Like, second only to the interviews I do with IFBB pros. This is one of our highest, I guess, viewed articles. And that means a lot to me. And again, it's just who I am. It's just something I decided to write about, and people gravitated towards it because it's real, and it's emotional, and it's raw. Oh yeah, most recently, you guys familiar with Popeyes? Popeyes supplements, brands? Cool. They just took me on as a sponsored athlete. I bet you that you didn't even know Popeyes could do that. I am sponsored not only by a supplement company, but by a supplement distributor. They're like, we've been stalking you on Instagram. We love your posts because you're half naked half the time, but the rest of the time you're clothed and really eloquent and intelligent. And we want that kind of athlete, someone who knows how to balance it. So this is me with Rune Mallon. He's the owner of 4 different franchises at Yonge and Eglinton, Yonge and Charles, Liberty Village, and another one. And I just get whatever I want for 25% off and then a bunch of free stuff once a month with him. And it wasn't because of anything I was seeking out. It was because I just put who I am out there on social media, in real life, to you guys, to my friends. And they're like, we love it. We want it. We want it to represent our brand too. So again, I cannot emphasize this enough. When you just do you and be you, as long as you're a good person and you treat everyone with respect and you don't ruffle too many feathers, you're allowed to step on a little toes, success will come. Success will inevitably be there when you're passionate about what you do. People will just take notice. That is a huge lesson. All right, so now we get to my actual career, because that's just kind of like my fun hobbies. Here is where I am in the industry. I am a trainer, kind of, as AJ said. I only have 7 clients a week. I used to have a lot more. In 2013, I was nominated by Optimum Nutrition, another huge supplement company, as one of Canada's top 10 trainers. And it wasn't because I was on television, and it wasn't because I'd ever been on a segment of CTV. It was because I had enough people whose lives I'd affected as a trainer. I didn't even have so many success stories that I had clients who were 300 pounds and I brought them down to like 120 and put them on stage and they won. Like, even my stories weren't that miraculous. But I had enough people that I cared about and that I loved training that Optimum Nutrition somehow managed to find me. And I got featured in, I didn't work for Muscle Insider at the time, but like I got featured in Muscle Insider, got a bunch of recognition, and that was just because I loved what I did. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. I'm sure you guys have heard that quote before. So obviously I'm not just some trainer that decided to diet. Well, I did decide to diet, but it wasn't why I became a trainer. I did kin. I loved kin. I studied kin. I worshipped kin. I lived it. I breathed it. That was my preparation. My opportunity came when I got a phone call from a gym that said, we've heard about you. It's a small studio boutique in Forest Hill, so a very affluent community. We'd heard about you. We want you. I said, do you want to interview me? They said, no, if you want the job, you've got it. Here's where the pay starts. We'll try and give you as many clients as we can just because we want you so badly. And my career as a personal trainer took off from there. Now, I always thought that I wanted to be Jillian Michaels. back in the day. I thought that I wanted to be on television, I wanted to be screaming at people, I wanted to be just bigger than life. But the truth is, I don't. I like dealing one-on-one with people in a small studio boutique in Forest Hill. I didn't need to be so grand. I just needed to be me. I just needed to work with people, and if I saw enough people and if I affected enough people, that would have been the end goal. I would have been so happy with that. Now it just so happened that I started getting more and more clients, like working 40 hours a week, and I'm not just talking being at the gym 40 hours a week, I'm talking 40 hours a week of clients, which is insane for a trainer, that it practically ran me ragged. It did run me ragged. It also ruined a number of other relationships. Anyway, but I loved it. I loved it, so I knew I wanted to do more of it and be somewhere in between where I was as a trainer and Jillian Michaels. Enter Muscle Insider. I saw one of their booths at an OPA show, which is Ontario Physique Association. That's like the governing body of bodybuilding in Ontario specifically. And I went up to my now boss, and I said, I love what you're doing for the industry. Here's my background, worked for bodybuilding.com, worked for these people, done interviews with these people, can you use me? And he said, well, I mean, not really, we're kind of a small operation, we've got 5 people, but I see you at events, I've noticed you around. What if we start you off by taking control of our Twitter at these bodybuilding shows, the same way you were doing for bodybuilding.com, just at a smaller scale? So are you kidding? Yes, 100% yes. I will do your Twitter for free. Oh, so this is my Twitter account. But anyway, I did Twitter. And I did Twitter for an entire bodybuilding season, so from about March till November. I grew Muscle Insider's following by about 10,000 people just over the course of one competitive season. Now, the boss knew that I had something to offer. So that winter, he said, I want to take you on part-time because I know that you love training, but we need you. Whatever you've got, we need it. So I will pay you to work part-time, and you're going to take Twitter, Facebook, and anything else we need. You may even do photography at shows. Instagram wasn't a thing back in like 2013. It wasn't as big as it is now. But Twitter and Facebook. So I said, fine, done. Yes, this is so much fun. This is the Muscle Insider Twitter account. So my resume eventually started to grow because then he realized I was valuable on social media. I was valuable as a writer. I had great people skills, so I could interact, I could work the booth. He's like, you're too valuable. You're too valuable to only work part-time. What other position could we make for you that would keep you on board and would make you leave personal training? And at the time, I was starting to fall out of love with it. I don't know if you guys have noticed, those of you who have clients, sometimes you eventually, after a certain period of time of working with people, you become more of a psychologist than a trainer. You guys start to know that they just start talking to you and you have to remind them that you're in a gym and not on a couch. So especially in affluent areas, I've noticed clients love to do that. They love to talk to me, but that wasn't what I was passionate about. I am not passionate about listening to your problems. No offense. I'm passionate about getting you the body you want, making you healthy, giving you self-confidence from the outside in. That's what I love to do. So this came at a perfect time, my promotion. So he said, all right, okay, that's fine. Here's the amount of money we're going to give you. We're going to give you Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you're going to be our online editor-in-chief. And I said, what does that even mean? And he's like, I don't know, but I feel like it's a position you could do. So we created the position of online editor-in-chief, I will tell you what that is, just so that he could keep me around. And because we knew that journalism was clearly something I was going to get into, turns out online editor-in-chief just means dealing with all of the problems when the website crashes. Like, that's it. I also end up uploading articles, writing articles, making sure that feature boards change, making sure that all of our advertisers have their little boxes where they should be and there are no gray boxes. It's a big position, and I love it. I love it more than anything, and I knew that even then, I wanted to do more with the magazine. But in the meantime, I run an empire. Hate to say it, I run an empire. I pretty much run Muscle Insider. Obviously, there's an art director. Obviously, there's a publisher. Obviously, there's an editor-in-chief. But if you think about what I do, and I hate saying this because it doesn't make me sound, it makes me sound more important than I think I am, but it's just my job. I am the hub of everything Muscle Insider needs. So when an advertiser needs a banner on our website, that's going from marketing to online editor. And when an IFBB pro wants to do an interview, that goes from editor-in-chief to managing editor. And when my assistant wants to put something on Facebook, it has to go through me as manager of social media communities. Like, there's nothing that Muscle Insider does that doesn't go through me between my 2 job titles. And I love it. I love the responsibility. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the phrase, if you want something done, give it to someone busy. If I showed you my daily to-do list, it would drive you insane. And yet somehow, I still put in 8 to 12 hours every day. I don't drive myself crazy. I'd like to consider myself somewhat healthy emotionally and physically. But I just love what I do so much. Joe Donnelly is one of the most popular fitness models right now. We got a great interview. I posed with this. He commented. It was the highlight of my career up till that point. This is me on a daily basis. Like, I am so happy with my job. It's insane. I love it. So remember, so again, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, which really means there is no luck. There's no such thing as being in the right place at the right time. It wasn't a coincidence that Scott, the publisher, and I were at the same OPA show. I was covering it because I love what I do. It just so happened to be an opportunity that Scott was also there at the same time and offered me a job, but there's no luck. You create it. You create it by loving what you do, being where you have to be at the right time, and hoping that other people are there too. Next one, get out of your comfort zone now. This is me. This is me at the Olympia in 2014. So like I said, the Olympia is the most prestigious event of the IFBB Pro season. It's like the Super Bowl of bodybuilding. And this is me in the morning. My business is your casual, #business casual, off to day 2 of Olympia life, whatever that means. Okay, I just want you to look at this picture, and if you didn't see me, and if you hadn't been listening to me talking for the last whatever minutes, would you trust this girl with a magazine? Like, would you believe that this is the managing editor of a magazine, but also runs the entire website and social media? No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. But one day, I decided that kin wasn't enough for me, and that personal training wasn't enough. And when Scott said, would you like to be online editor-in-chief? And the first thing in my head is, what the fuck are you, like, why would you give me a job? Ever? Why would you even let me run Twitter? Like, I'm not professional. I got out of my comfort zone. I said, okay, you want to take me from blue collar to white collar? I mean, I'm sure I could do it. If I'm not good, what's the worst that could happen? You fire me. I go back to training. It's not like I hated it. I still loved it. Like, you have to get out of your comfort zone in order to let things happen to you. Don't believe that just because you're in this program, or just because you did kin, or just because you're a personal trainer now, that's the best it's going to get for you. If an opportunity comes and it seems like it may be something you'd like to do, or maybe something you're capable of, just take it. Just try it. Because again, you will always have a fallback, and that's whatever you were doing when you were offered the job. And that's probably not a bad thing either. So first promotion, online editor. Second promotion, managing editor. One was 2014, one was 2015. And this is me at the Arnold this year. Clearly nothing has changed. I am still a goof. I'm still ridiculous. Why am I on the Arnold stage? I don't know. Like, I still love what I do, and the real me still comes out in everything I do. And my boss is still in love with my performance. If he was, I wouldn't keep getting these promotions. But it's all because once upon a time, I took myself out of my comfort zone. And I realized that this kid, that girl with like that at the Olympia, had every right to be at the Olympia. Every right. Every right to run. I still have every right to run a magazine. Sure, I don't have a journalism background or a broadcast background or know the first thing about grammar, spelling, and English. But I put out a pretty damn good magazine every 2 months. And that makes me happy, and that makes my boss happy. The next one. Your life is a reflection of what you believe is possible for yourself. And I'm just going to leave the words up for a little bit because I want that to sink in. Again, I know it kind of sounds cheesy, and definitely something I got off like an Eric Thomas or Les Brown motivational YouTube video, but it rings so true. Your life is a reflection of what you believe is possible for yourself. You have to get to a point where you don't have to necessarily say it's probable. Like, it was not probable that I was going to run a magazine when I was 19 years old. I remember so many discussions with a professor that AJ and I had back in the day about steroids. She and I were just getting constant arguments about steroids, and she would, knock on me because of my bodybuilding career. And it was because that was all she thought that I was going to. I was just the dumb jock in the class. Like, that's the truth. I was the one who would skip class to go weight train. If it was, if I knew that I was going to have a 12-hour day, I would skip her class, or I would come in late, or I would leave early, specifically to go bodybuild. And she thought that that's all I was going to do, and that's all I was going to be. And yet here we are. I have several blogs, several titles. I don't remember how many interviews I've done. I've been in the newspaper. People just want to hear about my story because I never ruled. Can I go back? Oh, it's fine. You got the point. And it's because I never ruled anything out. I never said it's impossible. Everything is possible. You just have to believe it. Again, it may not be probable, but everything, literally every career you want, if you want it badly enough, if you know the right people, if you're willing to work for it, everything is possible. And all of those slides, all of those interviews is a reflection. I never once thought that I wouldn't recover from anorexia. I never thought that at 19, that was how I was going to go. I knew that I wasn't going to go. I never thought that I wouldn't be famous. I'm not famous, but like a certain amount of fame. Within the industry, people know me. I always knew that was going to be the case. I never thought that I would never find another partner. I knew that I wasn't going to be forever alone. Like, I know these things. I knew that even though it didn't look possible, if I just kept my options open, it would be there. Everything is possible. Everything is possible. Fast forward to my life now. Plot twist. I found the girl of my dreams. Turns out that's not the only reason Ben and I didn't work. It's my work. I'm not interested in him. Dana Lynn Bailey. Do you guys know Dana Lynn Bailey? She's a huge fitness industry celeb. She's won the Olympia. She and I are friends. I am friends with Dana Lynn Bailey. She's in my phone. We text. Like, what? Again, I would never have ruled anything out because if I said, no, there's not a chance in hell that I would ever be with a girl. There is not a chance in hell that I would ever be friends with Dana Lynn Bailey. Then none of it would have happened. It was because I was open-minded about literally everything. Everything that's ever happened to me, I'm just like, come at me, bro. Like, you let it happen. Next, decided to stop bodybuilding, but I have an athletic background, so don't hate me. I got into CrossFit. Yeah, but it works for me because this is my first competition ever 6 months after I started CrossFit, and there I am on the podium in first place with one of my partners. Decided to try CrossFit, was open to it, even though everyone's like, oh, it's stupid and you're going to get hurt. And I'm like, what's the probability that I'm going to get hurt? It's a possibility, but it's not a probability. So I trained my ass off, and I learned about wall balls and Olympic lifting, and I won my first competition ever, literally 6 months later. I'd let it happen to me. I'd let CrossFit happen. And then the last one, Sergio. You guys know Sergi Constance? Okay, he's got like 1.6 million followers on Instagram. He's huge. He doesn't even have his pro card. Like, now that you know what the IFBB is, Sergi is still an amateur, and yet for some reason has as many followers as any number of the Kardashians. But here he is with my magazine. We just shot a cover. I was just there to watch Sergi shoot a cover. Like, this life, sometimes I have to step back and realize just how insane it all is. But again, if I had said no, like once upon a time, if Scott had said, did you want to be online editor-in-chief? And I would have said, you know what, Scott? I'm not comfortable with it. I don't know the first thing about running a website. If it crashes, I don't understand HTML code or even who I'm supposed to call to explain HTML code for me because all of my friends are jocks. I can't do this. Then I would not have Sergi Constance holding a copy of our Arnold issue. I would not be at his photo shoot where he is shooting a cover for us. Moving on again. Don't dabble. Commit. Go all in. I decided that I was going to be a fitness model in 2015. I hired an agent. There is an agency specifically for fitness modeling because clearly I'm not a 00. I'm not walking the catwalk. Like ever. There are no cat. Maybe a stage, but not a catwalk. But I decided that I have a decent enough body for fitness modeling. Now, in case you haven't been looking at any of the slides, decent enough is not good enough for me. I don't do decent enough. I don't do enough work to get by. I don't put enough in a relationship just to keep someone happy. I don't dabble. I commit and I go all in. So I started a diet. I streamlined my physique. I was like a slightly bulkier bodybuilder before. Dropped all of my off-season weight and decided to fitness model. Hired a professional photographer because That's how we do. Went to Miami and shot. And this is what got me all of my work. This is what started me on my fitness modeling career. This is why I get paid just to have people take photographs of me. So I want you guys to think about when the last time you went all in was with anything, whether it's your relationship or your school or, I don't know, a commitment to getting on stage or whatever it is your athletic goal is, or even a photo shoot. When was the last time you went all in with anything? And if you haven't gone all in, what are you saving yourself for? Like what is holding you back? What's like the thing that you're waiting for? Why can't you just go all in? If you give 100% to your relationship, what's the worst going to happen? Like, your girlfriend's going to be happy with you? Question mark? Like, is that so bad? What happens if you go all in with diet? You may just have a better physique. That's not, none of these things, nothing bad can happen by going all in. Nothing except success. Which is a good thing. That's not even a bad thing. It's a really good thing. So one of my biggest pieces of advice is don't dabble, commit all in. If it's your job, if you don't love personal training, if you're not necessarily saving yourself, but you can't go all in with personal training, it's probably not the career for you. If you can't find the energy or the compassion or whatever to go all in your relationship, it's probably not the relationship for you. But stop saving yourself. If I have one piece, no, I have like 800. But if I had another piece of advice for you, it was stop saving yourself. Just go all in. I don't care what it is that you pick. Pick a thing, start with it, and see what your 100% is. See just how far you can take yourself. I went all in with fitness modeling, and it opened up so many doors. So many doors. Okay, so this is another one. Don't fake it till you make it. Fake it till you become it. And you're going to see a bunch of slides with it, I think 2 or 3, with this mantra. I have a severe case, if we're being honest and we're open and sharing, I have a severe case of imposter syndrome. Do you guys know what that is? Okay. It's when you've risen to a place that's pretty awesome and you're pretty accomplished and you're a very high achiever, but you don't believe that you deserve to be there. I know that you're like, oh, but you're talking to a class and blah, 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 and you have 3 different business cards. Like, of course you deserve to be there, but I don't. And that is the nature of imposter syndrome, that even though you're not faking it, you still think that one day you're going to be found out. So I keep chasing these different dreams and these different heights in order to prove to myself that I deserve it. And one day I'm going to get there. Don't worry, I'm not completely like psychologically broken. Like one day I will get there. But in the meantime, a lot of people say fake it till you make it. That doesn't work. That doesn't work, because if you just fake it long enough to make it, then you will revert back to whatever it is you were before when someone burst your bubble. Fake it till you become it. If you present yourself as confident long enough, and if you present yourself as knowing what you're doing, then you'll eventually start to believe it, which will lead to you becoming it. So once upon a time, I did one of my first photo shoots, and it was pretty bad. Like, it was pretty raw. I didn't, no makeup, no hair, no nothing. But I had to take myself out of my comfort zone for it too, going back to one of the other lessons. And somehow I ended up in the Inside Fitness Hot and Fit 100. I didn't think that I was a fitness model, but I saw this phrase and I said, well, I'm going to fake it till I become it. I will fake it until I actually make it into a magazine, until I actually become a fitness model. And somehow I did. I also managed to get the six-pack sponsorship, as I was talking about before. This is probably the biggest one. This would be the most prestigious sponsorship I have, because they're a huge company. Everyone in the bodybuilding and fitness community uses them. And it was a really big deal for me to fake it. I had to fake, like, again, I don't compete anymore. I haven't competed since 2012, but I had to fake being an athlete until they could believe me that I was worth it. I became an athlete in the process. I became a stronger athlete. I became a successful CrossFit athlete. And they decided to take me on. I also write so many blogs for them. But it's all about believing that you can do it. And if you don't necessarily believe it now, then just don't give up on the dream. Believe that eventually it will happen for you. And you just have to keep believing, never give up the faith. The reason I chose this blog specifically, when you find your why, you find a way to make it happen. And this ties back into don't fake it till you make it, fake it till you become it. Everyone needs a why. I don't know if you guys have ever read blogs or heard motivational YouTube videos about your why, but the why is the reason you do things. Like if you're going to start a diet, you could just do it to look good, but that's not a deep-rooted why, because that can come and go. You can see a pint of Ben & Jerry's, and then your desire for the ice cream is stronger than your desire to look good. It's not strong enough. My why, and I know that not everyone is going to have this, obviously, my why is my dad. As sad as that sounds, like if everything I do is for him, then you better believe that I am never going to lose sight of my trajectory. And that applies mostly to my professional life, but pretty much everything else. I try not to fuck around with everything else because I want to make him proud. It's mostly my professional life, but you guys all need to, whenever you're about to embark on a journey or you have an end goal, you need to pick a why. Because it will always be what grounds you. And whenever you want a Ben & Jerry's, or whenever you want to cheat on a significant other, or whenever you want to cheat on a test or not study enough, your why will be at the back of your head like a nagging leech. And it should be. I know that sounds awful, but it should be there all the time. When you find your why, you find a way to make it happen. You also find, you remember your goals. You remember why you started in the first place. Like I said, that ties into don't fake it till you make it, fake it till you become it. If you keep your why around long enough, you will eventually be that thing that you want to become. Last but not least, do what you can where you are with what you have and never be satisfied. So clearly, and now I think, having gone through my entire spiel, you can understand why they say that my route in the fitness industry is unconventional. Because how do you go from an 11-year-old who weighs 95 pounds to a woman who runs a magazine? There are so many different hills, peaks and valleys, ups and downs, like speed bumps, stop signs, roadblocks. But never once did I let it stop me. This is something that is always at the back of my mind. Do what you can, where you are with what you have, and never be satisfied. Happy, yes. I'm not encouraging you guys to always strive for perfection and excellence and just never be okay with where you are. Of course you should take stock of your life and realize how far you've come. But never be satisfied. Always realize how much further you have to go because you're never done. You can be happy, but never done. So my life has been a constant series of having to do what I can, where I am, with what I have, because nothing has been handed to me. I've had to fight and scratch and claw and bite and deal with death and deal with loss nonstop since I was 11. But it's made me the person that I am today. So I want you guys to remember this, that it all goes back to the first slide. It's once you go through those trials and tribulations, once you struggle in that cocoon, that you get to become a butterfly. And I really hope that all of you guys are happy with the person that you're going to become, and you all have goals that you want to fulfill, and you're not just coasting through life. My wish for you guys is that you guys, although your road may not be clear or paved or easy, at least you know where you want to go. And even when you get there, never be satisfied. Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to take questions, please. Obviously, I'm super open with my life. Nothing is taboo, or there's nothing I don't like talking about. It's all very, very comfortable and easy for me.
We got some time. We've got a few questions.
Couple questions, yeah.